So your kitchen, it can make or break you, okay? Either you walk in and you feel relaxed and you feel happy and you're like, I'm ready to cook. Or you walk in and you feel completely overwhelmed and unmotivated. I used to walk into my kitchen and feel so stressed that I would snap at my husband and my kids as if they were making things worse. I mean, they were making things worse, but my attitude was definitely not helping. Then I decided I would declutter. And if you see now, my kitchen is a little dirty and in need of some cleaning. So while I tackle that, you watch this about what happened when I did some decluttering a few years ago. Now here's something interesting, and I did not realize that. I have 3 ice cream scoops. Hey friends, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a kitchen declutter. Now this is something that I do from time to time. Even though I have gone minimalist, there still is stuff that needs to be gone through on a regular basis. And the kitchen is definitely a place that I think is a good place to start if you're just starting minimizing, because there's not a lot of things that we have like a strong sentimental tie to, which I really like about the kitchen. And I just wanted to note something quickly. If you're not in love with your kitchen, I'm not going to say I'm in love with the color of this kitchen. It is a little orange. It's beautiful. It's nice. It's large. It serves our family. I mean, ideally I will be painting the cupboards white at one point and changing the countertops because they're brown, but you still need to enjoy it. So minimizing it is a great way of doing that. And also just keeping minimal things out on the counter, but I will get to that in just a second. Since we've gone minimalist, life has been much, much better. We have 3 boys. I am a nurse. My husband's a first responder. So life is chaotic, and keeping the kitchen clean helps us be sane and calm and happier. So let's get to these drawers because I know there's stuff in here that I need to be decluttering. Okay, so this is my measuring things drawer slash sort of baking stuff drawer. Now this is something funny that I can't even believe I have kept this. I think it was a stocking stuffer. It is a turkey doneness ringing timer thing. So we are gonna get rid of that. And you know, I don't know how many sets of measuring spoons I really need, so I'm gonna be getting rid of some of these. This is my son's, he got it at Disneyland. So these can go with him when he moves. He's a big baker, which I think is lovely. So I'm just gonna move those out of the way for now, just to show my ideal. But these are some things that I just don't need anymore. They're like just missing components. So just get a few things out of here. And yes, I do have a syringe in here. I am a nurse, but this was actually for dosing the flavor for my soda stream. Does that seem weird? All right, I'm happy with this drawer. Now this is where things get crazy, and this is a good example of the kids emptying the dishwasher. This, I don't know why I have this. This is like for like chopsticks. I don't need a chopstick bag. Bent melted spoon for the kids' lunches. No. Grapefruit spoons. I mean, like we almost never have grapefruit. We don't need grapefruit spoons. And here is something. Now I have 2 sets of these Instant Pot utensils. I don't need these. I don't need 2. I don't. But you know, I have to say this little ladle is very handy for getting things out of like the very edges of pots, but I don't need 2. As much as I loved having babies, I don't need their spoons anymore. So I'm going to declutter this baby spoon. Now here's something interesting, and I did not realize that because these were in different drawers before. I have 3 ice cream scoops. Now we don't need ice cream. Okay, back after a quick phone call. So these are 3 ice cream scoops. Now, I don't know about you, but we don't need enough ice cream to need 3 ice cream scoops. So I'm just gonna keep the best one. This one I'm going to donate. It's a good one for people. I think it's like an OXO grip. This is good for people with arthritis. There's the nurse in me finding like which people with which issues can use stuff. Don't need that. And then this one is a big one, and I just don't need it. It doesn't work as well. It kind of gets like comes off of its track. It's easy enough to fix, but I don't need anything that doesn't work well. And then I've got this one. I like this one. It's easy, it's comfortable, it's good on the thumb. So this is my short handles things drawer. So and you know, I've got this pastry brush. I don't need 2. Just look at all of this. Who needs that? And this is the short-handled utensils drawer. And again, we use all of this. So one of the things I really recommend when people are decluttering is to only spend about 30 minutes at a time. Otherwise, it seems like it just gets really stressful and feels like a huge event. And if you're on a real roll, you can keep going, but you just don't want to make like a major event out of it. So I am only going to set my timer for 30 minutes because I have my kids' tutor coming over. We have other things to do. It's like a beautiful day here on Vancouver Island, and I really do not want to spend all of it inside. So I'm only spending 30 minutes decluttering today. Okay, this is the dishes cupboard. And you know what? I do have a couple of things in here that I just don't need. And I have these bowls. These are really nice, kind of like round bowls, but I don't need extra bowls. So I'm gonna put these, we're gonna donate them. Oh, gosh, I should have got my stool. These are also very nice bowls. They're good for things like soup, but you know what? We already have these big bowls, which are really handy for big things like a big salad and that. We do have a family of 5, but my youngest, who is almost 12, he's not a huge eater, so he would be happy with one of these smaller white bowls. So I feel like that's pretty good. This is my only Christmas mug, and I am gonna keep it because it makes me really happy. Oh gosh, okay. This is my Christmas movie mug, because I love Christmas movies. It's June, FYI, but there we go. And then another, like a plate for Santa. So maybe I don't know how long we'll keep that, but for now we'll keep it for at least another year. So one of the things that I actually have been meaning to declutter lately is a couple of teacups, and I bought them a few years ago because I thought it would be nice to have tea when my friends came over in these cute little teacups. But let's face it, they hold like maybe 1/3 of a cup of tea, which is definitely not enough tea. And I just don't need them. We don't use them. So I'm going to declutter those too. Lovely, it's Scottish. I'm sure Diane in Denmark would like it, but it's really, I just don't use it. These are little Krispy Kreme mugs that I got. They're cute. They have like a little donut in the bottom, and I got them in Vancouver. There's a Krispy Kreme or in Delta, and I got some for each of the kids, but I'm gonna be honest with you, like they don't use them. It's probably the ideal size a kid should have for hot chocolate, but really these should probably be decluttered too. Don't you like where you find where people have put things? This is the lid for my to-go cup. I'm super happy I have it. Yay! How do you know you have a Scottish mother-in-law? Another little cup and an empty hot chocolate canister. So this is a mug that my son takes to like if he goes camping. The kids, they need to take dishes with them. So I am going to set these aside because they go on a camp out with the school a couple of times a year. So I do need a few things like this. I'm not going to send my good stuff, but other than that, I really am happy with the very small amount of things that I am keeping, but I don't need the lid for it. I just don't realize how short I am. Okay, so I've got a couple of big things. This my husband and I got when we went to Disneyland. I'm actually not keeping it because it's sentimental, but he likes a big mug in the morning when he has his coffee. But overall, it's, you know, like these are the things for kids going camping. Here's another one. Other than that, very few mugs. So that's really happy. Okay, and so I think that now I really just need to go to my Tupperware drawer, and I have gone through this recently, but I do think there are a couple of things that we could discard. This is my potato masher. It just doesn't fit in any other drawer because it's big. It's annoying KitchenAid one. We have 2 of these spatulas for the barbecue, and I'm not very good at barbecuing. I'm a pretty good cook, but I am not good at barbecuing. I just tend to burn it all. I want to like come inside and quickly do something and then it burns. So, but this one, I don't think my husband likes this when he uses it. So I think we can get rid of that. I'll just confirm that with him. Here's a couple of lids that don't have a home. Get rid of those. And the other thing is, like, I like to sort of take stock about what I have in my drawers before I complete for the day, because next time I might be like, okay, so I really didn't use that. I don't need to keep it. But we do put a lot of things in the fridge and the freezer, so we do need some things, of course, to store things in. But it is a good idea to keep stock of how many things you actually have and how many things you're gonna need to keep going with. Okay, so onto the utensil drawer that I keep by the stove. Now, if you've ever heard of lean design, which is something that we talk about in healthcare a lot, because it means that you keep things that you use the most at hand. So in this drawer, I have my tongs, the spatulas I use the most, and I do have things like in my other, I've got a long-handled and short-handled drawer. They are like a slotted spoon. Like, I can't not have a slotted spoon. I did have 2 before, so I decluttered one because I don't use it all the time, but it is something that it is nice to have. But I have 3 pairs of tongs in here. What? And I actually have some with silicone in the other drawer. And I do need the one with silicone, of course, like if I'm using my non-stick pan. but I certainly don't need these 3. I'm going to keep 1 because it is good on the barbecue. I'm going to tell you something though. I hate this one because it pinches my hand, so that one's going. And this one's going to go. This fish turner, we used to have 2 of these, and it was because we actually used them a lot. That was before we got our latest non-stick pans. So I actually gave my mom one because she didn't have one, she didn't need it. I'm not a big fan of gifting clutter, but I do think that it was handy for her. So I'm happy to have that one, but I don't need 2. And I've got this I hate this spatula so much. I've had it for probably about 13 years. It's bulky, like it gets in the way. Okay, this is not doing it then, but gets in the way if you're like closing things and you're like, oh, see, look at this thing. So I'm going to get rid of this because I don't use it. I don't like it. It's not really good for anything. It catches on cookies. It catches on pancakes. It's just not good for any of that. That's why this thing is good for cookies and for cooking on my cast iron. And then I got this one, which I really like as well. So that is probably it. I've got our steak knives there and our regular knives. And there's a look at this random chopstick. It has no friends, it's gone. And wooden spoons. I'm gonna declutter this wooden spoon because I don't need it. And just like Erica Lucas said, you're not supposed to be putting it in the dishwasher, and a lot of us do. I mean, I'm certainly not washing things by hand if I don't absolutely have to, and usually it's because it doesn't fit in the dishwasher. So I'm moving that to the side. And straws, you do need to wash straws by hand. We actually used to put ours in the dishwasher. How would we think that that would work? This is my pots and pans. I got this thing to hold the lids up, so I'll just fix that. But other than that, we use all of that, so I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so on to the decorating part. Now, nobody would accuse me of being a great decorator, but because I have so few things, I think that things look pretty decent for the most part. Now in the kitchen, I definitely like to keep things as minimal as possible. So I only like to keep the things that we actually use for throughout the day on the counter, with the exception of one thing, and that is this cookbook stand. I just kind of like it sitting in the corner. There's a really good key lime pie recipe in here. It reminds me of where my husband and I got married, the little town there. So I keep that in the corner, but that's it. We have our 2 oils here. Sadly, they do not fit. Okay, that one, but this one does not fit in the cupboard. This is the canola oil and this is the olive oil. So they just sit right there, and I think they look fine. Over here, we've got our fruit. Obviously not all fruit can go in the fridge, so we keep it here. We used to have a wire stand that my son gave us, but it was not good. Look, I did not like it. He can hear me though. I want to talk too loud. So I've got this bowl and I've got my lemons in it. I've got my bananas here. Our pineapple is sitting upside down because that helps it be yummy, and you don't put tomatoes in the fridge. So over on the other side of the counter, just things that we use all the time. Like I've got my tea kettle. I do have a tea addiction if you've seen any of my videos before. And our soda stream. That thing's way too bulky. It has a canister of CO2, so probably not good to be moving it around too much. So I'm just keep it there. And my husband's coffee maker. So a few things out on the counter, but for the most part, we just keep stuff put away because it looks much nicer, much cleaner. It makes my brain happy. And at the end of the day, if the sink is clean and I come down in the morning and it's nice and clean, nice and tidy, I'm a happy lady, and that is a great way to start the day. The great thing about decluttering is it's so much easier to clean everything, including your kitchen. Now, the funny thing about the kitchen is it is an ongoing process. Now, I love Dawn, the Minimal Mom. She talks about the onion method, which means that we need to declutter in layers. And funny enough, you are going to continue to find crazy things and wonder why on earth you kept it the first time you went through. But believe me, that is a common thing and it's totally fine. Now, a few months ago, we decided to have our kitchen painted. And do you remember the orange in the last video? Yeah, okay. So when you take the fronts off your cupboards and your drawers, you see everything, everything. Ow, this is so hard on my knees, oh my gosh. I knew this section would just be filled with things that don't belong here. Well, let me tell you, we are having our kitchen remodeled. So for years, like 6 years, we've been planning to do that, and now we've finally done it. But there are a couple of problems here. So I don't have any doors on my cupboards right now, which is a bit of a pain. I have our food waste container on the counter because normally it's hanging from the door. The other problem though is that I can actually see how messy my cupboards were. I had no idea. I thought, you know, it was decluttered and everything was tidy. You just don't even realize it. And especially when like kids are emptying the dishwasher and people are putting things away, it's not always put away neatly. So what I'm going to do right now, and I have 45 minutes before I have a client call, I'm going to see if I can get these cupboards nice and cleaned up. Underneath the sink is really gross, so I'm going to vacuum that, wipe that out, and we will see if I can get this done. So join me. I've got fizzy water. I don't have tea right now because I will have that after. That's more of a break thing. And you can see just how messy these cupboards and drawers are. Like, we have got cutting boards stacked up haphazardly, dangerously. Things are in the wrong drawers. So anyway, I'm just gonna tidy this stuff up, see how much I can get done. And stick around to the end because I am going to show you the completed kitchen with the new painted doors and the backsplash. So the first thing, I always listen to my AirPods. So I have a basket for things that I will declutter. I don't even know if I will declutter much, but normally I have like something for recycling, something for garbage, and something to give away. But I decluttered this kitchen last year and I feel like there won't be much, but I might be wrong. So I'm gonna get started. First, I'm going to put things back in the right spot. I feel like that's gonna be the whole theme of this area. Ow, this is so hard on my knees. Oh my gosh. Oh, you know you're not a spring chicken anymore. Oh my gosh. Ugh, straw. This drawer, I keep my Vitamix here, my immersion blender, and a few loose Ziploc bags, looks like. This section, it's really like, I have decluttered a little bit, I'm gonna be honest, but it's mostly just cleaning. Oh. Okay. Let me show you in here. Okay, this is like the Tupperware section. We have these big bowls and we use them for popcorn. We are big popcorn lovers. And I use them when we have company over, like big salads. We also use them for gardening. Oh my gosh. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, my kids put this away dirty. Ew. Like this doesn't go there. So I've got these lids. I would love to know your way of managing Tupperware lids, because I just stack them up under the bowls. This is my lunch bag for when I'm working. All right, now I see that the Ziploc bags have gotten a little messed up. I am doing this as fast as I can because I kind of think I want to have a cup of tea. I'm listening to Stuff You Should Know, which is one of my favorite podcasts, and I have been listening to it for 15 years. Put that there so the painters can find it. Oh, that fits really nicely. There we go. Yay! Okay, I'm gonna just do this corner one before I do under the sink because that's gonna be gross. This one you're gonna struggle to see because it's dark. So I'm just gonna root around, tidy this up. My camera battery died while I was filming this, so I actually had to film under the sink after the fact. Okay, this just has a bit of oil on the bottom and a lot of salt and pepper. Here's some honey that came with a meal thing. I'll probably just throw that out. Yes, we will. Can you tell I'm in Canada? Yes, you can, because we have got red rose tea and Tim Hortons coffee. Okay. Doesn't that look so much tidier? Yeah. Much better. Oh, yeah. And just so you know I'm not perfect, yeah, that's right, it's the middle of the day, so I moved some things off to the side so it looks really nice and clean. Last summer, I decluttered my kitchen and it was a much bigger declutter, so check here for that video because it was a bit of a feat. So you can see the beginning of how all of this started. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. There are some common items that a lot of us have, and we probably shouldn't have. I like to call those unitaskers, as Elton Brown did. One of my favorite things to declutter is unitaskers like this olive pitter, which in theory only has one job. Now, if it wasn't for us using it when we accidentally buy pitted olives, or with the pit in, how do you say that? But we also have a lot of cherries in the summer, so we use it then. So you don't have to get rid of all unitaskers, but there are some that you probably should get rid of unless you use them. Let's explore that a little bit more. Clutter is killing your kitchen, and it is probably driving you right up the wall. Now, never keep these things. Unitaskers. Those are kitchen tools that only do one thing. Now, the amazing Elton Brown came up with that name, and I think it is so perfect. Think about the banana cutter. Really, is there another way you could cut bananas? Let me think. Do we need a banana cutter? In fact, is a banana cutter harder than cutting a banana with a knife? What about the avocado scoop? Do we need an avocado scoop when there's this option available? I don't think so. The problem with unitaskers is that they don't save you time or space, which is something that we want to consider when keeping something in our kitchen. They just add to the clutter and the mess, plus they often end up lost in the back of your drawers. Now you're probably like, well, what about a cheese grater? Okay, here's the thing. Yes, I guess it is a unitasker. It does great things, a few different kinds of things, like carrots, for example. Can you imagine not having a grater for carrots? That seems like a nightmare. So the odd thing, it's very useful. Of course, I recommend keeping that because I'm not getting rid of this thing. Another thing that we should declutter is useful things that we don't use. Now, the most useful thing is useless if you're not using it. So many of us, we have like mountains of things that we aren't using in our whole house. If you've ever moved, you know the kitchen is a spot in the house that has a ton of stuff. Now, if we are not using the things in there, we really are just wasting space. So for example, maybe we have like a ton of baking dishes and they're all useful. I want to make a cake. I wonder if I should do cupcakes, or I know, how about the Cookie Monster cake mold I have from 20 years ago? If we're only using 1 or 2 pans, then really we don't need the extra ones. We're always going to be gravitating towards the things that we prefer anyway. And some small appliances, like air fryers, some people absolutely love them, and I think that is so wonderful. But other people don't like them. If you don't like something or you're not using it, I would say you need to let that sucker go. For example, I have this popsicle mold and some people absolutely love them. They rave up and down. However, this sucker has not been used in our kitchen. So when it is summer, which is a better time to sell it, is when I'm actually going to get rid of that thing because we just don't use it, as useful as it is. And I absolutely love cookbooks, and Santa buys me a cookbook every year at Christmas, which means another cookbook has to go to the donation bin. As much as I absolutely love these cookbooks, and this one, I do love you, Alton, but I really do only like the waffle recipe in here, so I probably could let this go, which will then leave room for more cookbooks. Now, the one caveat here is things that you don't use often, but they save you time at least once or twice per year. I don't often make an apple pie or like applesauce or whatever, but when I do, having this apple core peeler combo thing is so useful. It saves me so much time that there's no way I would go without. And imagine making your turkey dinner or your Christmas dinner without your big roaster pan that you probably only use like once or twice a year, but you certainly don't want to try to make turkey and anything other than that. And yes, I do love Christmas. I talk about it a lot, okay? No matter what it is, if you don't use it, don't keep it. Duplicates are something you should never keep. Now, multiples of the same item or sort of like this similar type of item is something that we don't need to keep. One of my coaching clients actually used to have 15 spatulas when she started her decluttering process. Can you imagine having 15 spatulas? And honestly, it's not like if we have like say 15 spatulas or 5 or whatever that we're really cycling through. I think that we always have like our favorites and we're really only using a few of the things. So many items in our drawers and cupboards are really just sitting there never to be used. And it actually is good to have more than one spatula, especially if you cook a lot or you have a lot of people in your house. Some things it is good to have more than one of are bowls for like making and baking and popcorn night. Now, ideally you have enough of the things that you use frequently so that you don't have to wash them a couple of times a day. Maybe you just have enough to get through the day, but no extra. The number one thing that I actually hear from people is that they don't even know where to start when they're decluttering, and they hate cooking in their kitchen. They hate cleaning before they have to cook, and they hate ordering takeout because their kitchen is so overwhelming. And did you know that you spend over 800,000 minutes of your life in your kitchen? I bet you did not know that, because I certainly did not know that. Wouldn't you love to enjoy your kitchen, to walk in and say, I never want to leave this? Let's take our kitchens back, people. I like to think of the pantry kind of like the garage of the house. It needs to be decluttered and managed frequently. And just look at the state of this one. Things in the wrong spot, empty bags. Ugh, this is literally my Achilles heel. It makes me feel so frustrated and it just is terrible. So check out this video while I tackle this mess. I just hate like loose bags. That's why I put a lot of things in jars. Decluttering my crazy stress-inducing pantry. Hey beauties, it's Robyn again. Today we are going to be cleaning my very messy, cluttered pantry. And I'm going to offer tips for everybody, which includes if you have a small pantry, a large pantry, or just a cupboard. These tips will be very helpful in decluttering where you keep your food. So I'm just going to show you some of the main areas that are of problem here and what we're going to do and how things have devolved over time. I'm even doing this without makeup for you guys. So it's kind of random. It used to be a lot more organized. Like, I don't know, like the olive oil's up there now. The balsamic is there. Part of it is that we get the kids to clean up after dinner. So they do put things away and I'm grateful they do. But like the salt, although you would think it would be with the seasonings, but I like to keep it over here with the baked goods. I'm going to actually change how I organize things in here a little bit. Now, before I go on, I just want to say, yes, I do have a rather large pantry, but I really want to stress that no matter what size your kitchen or your pantry is, these tips will be helpful for you. Procrastination is huge, and I am going to plop in my AirPods so that I am able to actually be entertained while I do this process. It always makes doing chores so much better. So the first place to start is by grabbing something to throw the food waste and the expired things, any recycling into. I just grabbed a laundry basket and I just started throwing stuff in there. And in no time I realized I was really happy because we didn't have a lot of food that was expired, but what we did have was a lot of David's tea tins and a lot of glass. Now, I do have a bit of a David's tea obsession. It's partially because COVID has shut down our David's tea in town and we have to order it online. And a lot of the stuff is seasonal. So I kind of stock up. I keep it in the cupboard so that I always have it around. It's like my little guilty little pleasure. And so I have all these tins left over. Now, I often use them to put gifts in. I've even put a couple of plants in them. But the first thing I'm going to do is see if anybody wants them because, you know, reduce, reuse, recycle. Recycle is last. I will recycle if nobody takes them, which is awesome. Same with the glass. The glass, I tend to save leftover glass. Okay, so this is the glass from the pantry and I use it for, I make a lot of chicken stock and beef stock and I keep it in the freezer, which you'll see next week. But some of the jars, and often I'll go to use a jar and I don't have a lid and it frustrates me. And the jars were stacking up, as you can see. And some of them I know I don't use. I think most of them I do, but if they don't have a lid, basically, if they don't have a lid, I'm getting rid of them. So I'm going to put lids on them and put them back. Anything left over will be recycled. As for the things that are for canning, I'll put them with my canning stuff, but overall I'm much happier with how much smaller I got my glass collection. Now in just a minute, I'm going to show you a tour of my completed, finished off pantry. But first we have to get to the down and dirty, and that would be the harder part of cleaning out the pantry. Now, you gotta take things out of there as much as you can. If I had a smaller pantry, I would probably put everything on my counter, but it is rather large. So I took kind of like the bulk of a few sections and threw it on my kitchen counter. And then I started shuffling things around. This is when you can get an idea of what you have and what categories you want to organize things in. Okay, so I don't know why, but I've been storing my rolling pins on their side and they just rolled off and made a huge dent in the floor. Whatever. So once you shuffle things around, then you get an idea of the categories that you can organize things in. Now, the funny thing is when you start going through your pantry, you are going to find a lot of things that you're like, wow, I cannot believe that we have so much of this one particular item. But the thing that really stood out was we had 3 bags of cornmeal. 3 bags of cornmeal. I love cooking, so I do have things in our pantry, but we use them. One of my rules for minimalism is making sure that you're not keeping things that you don't use. So we'll get rid of those, but for the most part, we use a lot of stuff. We like to cook and we love to eat. So as you're shuffling things around, clean as you go. So every time I have a shelf clear, I give it a vacuum, give it a dust, give it a wipe, then it's ready to be reorganized. So I started putting things back in the categories. So I'm gonna give you a little tour. Okay, so this is it. Now down here, of course, taller items will go the baking section. So I've got my flour, moving up still the baking section. Like all this is clustered together. And the snack section, which is pretty sad. These are baking things, glass, lots of rice. I actually had found I had a lot of rice before, and we'll get through it all. The quinoa, we'll get out with rice. This is the pasta section. Now, generally, I'm kind of against baskets, but this, I don't think things will get lost in there. I just hate like loose bags. That's why I put a lot of things in jars, because jars are a nice, they look nice. They're a good way to store things. I could put these as well, but you know, I don't want to go crazy. I don't have that many jars. I don't even have a lid on this one. See? Problem with the lids. And the canned goods. I'm actually happy we don't have that many. Had a rolling pin accident yesterday. Ugh, see that dent? Now this is another basket, and I think it's good because it's mostly flat things. The cat food up high because some cats are very sneaky. I'm talking about pumpkin seed. And this is the oils and vinegar section. Coming into the spices section, this would be the Asian spices. And this is sort of like salad toppers. This is where I also have more of the bags of the spices, just because I don't like having them around, but I just hate to buy them in these jars all the time. I got these at Lee Valley and I love them. They're a great way to store spices. We love ourselves some capers. This would be more the processed lunches section, minus this of course, but they just fit there well. These are really good soups, by the way. Crumpet's exploring. Crumpet! In case you're wondering, he's got a brain injury, but he's very happy, aren't you? Yes, you are. I love you. Oh, hi. Speaking of pantries, last year I realized I had a lot of old or nearly expired food that needed to be decluttered and gone through. So I came up with a plan to consume what could be consumed and declutter the rest. So check that out here. Seriously, this is a year old. These would be gross. Now, you all know that I am no fan of clutter, but one area that we can all struggle with is the pantry and the fridge and the freezer. Now, these areas can get a little dicey. Now, I have a new challenge for you. Let's declutter all of that extra food. Now, if this is your first time here, my name is Robyn. I help overwhelmed people simplify their lives through organization, productivity, and creating an environment where they can thrive. Now grab your tea and let's go. I think that post-Christmas, there are often a lot of things left over. There's a lot of food in various places. And like many people, we actually have a fridge and 2 freezers and a pantry. So these things are full of food. You may or may not have a lot of food, but just give this a watch anyway, because I've got some great tips for you. There can even be a lot of things left over from the rest of the year. Maybe things you bought in the fall or the spring or whatever. So it is now time to do a pantry/freezer challenge. No shopping for a month. Do you want to join me? I bet you do. Food clutter can be a major problem. We buy food, forget about it, then we buy more food, and we end up with a whack of clutter. And then we have to declutter a bunch of outdated or spoiled food. That's not good. That is just not good. This is my fridge and freezer. I know it seems like a weird setup. It's like a full fridge and a stand-up freezer. This is just how the house came. A lot of people say, wow, look at your fridge. And I'm like, no, it's a fridge and a freezer. The thing is, we really need to get an inventory of the things that we have before we can declutter. So I want you to grab a piece of paper, or actually a pad of paper, and you need to make a list of everywhere that you have food. I am going to write down everything I have in both freezers. I'm not going to write down like all the spices I have in the pantry or all of the condiments, but when I go through the fridge, I'm going to look at the condiments and be like, do I use this condiment? Because one of the most important things is that we are going to use up the extra food that we have. To use up the extra food that you have, you need to know and you need to plan, and then we're gonna get into a bit of meal planning at the end. But let's get to the freezer. Yikes, I like to keep the fridge a whole lot more organized than this, but over time and several Costco trips, this has gotten kind of full. Now, if we look at the door here, I have got a lot of frozen fruit. This is not a good spot to keep these things because the door, in particular with upright freezers, they're open and close. A lot of heat, or a lot of heat goes in, a lot of cold goes out. But like, look at these cherries that I got from a friend when I was making kombucha. Lovely. They're not pitted. So I'm going to do my best to find recipes and ways to eat pretty much all of the food. So, I mean, maybe like a compote or some kind of tart or something for this, but I'm just gonna get down to making my list and declutter some of the stuff in here. I do have some biscotti that I made at Christmas, which were super fun to make, and they're okay. They're not super sweet. I don't think I would again, but these will be good when I have people coming by. I will be putting these out and being like, have more tea, eat this biscotti. My family love taquitos, and we have like open bags, 3 open bags, a Ziploc bag with some taquitos in there. So this is why inventory is so important, because we really need to know what we are dealing with. I have some garlic scape, a shoot, like a thing that comes up from a garlic. It's actually like a flower stalk, and it's delicious. It's so good to make like eggs and things like that. But the problem is that these are dried out and old. So there are certain things that I'm not going to keep, especially if it hasn't aged well. So I feel good about that. I have a few more, like this is like some kind of candy I made at Christmas. So we will definitely be eating as much of that as possible. And I will get into the recipes in just a second. Now that things have settled down, I think it's a great time to really tackle getting my pantry, my fridge, and my freezer under control. I am starting a challenge for the month of February, and I will host it in my Facebook group. And I will even have some pages that you can print off to inventory your stuff, plan your meals, and even with some food and recipe ideas. So head over to learn.minimalisthome.ca/pantry to sign up, and it is going to be so fun. My past participants can tell you that my challenges are always fun, and I think that the best part is the Facebook group because we can share our challenges and wins. We can also maybe share some recipes, and I mean, things might get kind of weird as things go further along, but I will get to that in a second. Okay, so this is my fridge. I have a lot of condiments. I love cooking, and I love cooking all sorts of foods like Asian foods and Latin foods and things like that. We have a 6-pack of beer that we opened and had like one of at Christmas because we had people come visit and I wanted to be prepared, but we aren't big drinkers. I don't need to keep this in here, so I'm just going to stick it out in the garage. It's a little disorganized, like the fridge is a bit messy. I have to admit, I'm not going to take a ton of responsibility for this because I was away, but there are some things that need to be gone through, so I'm going to go through things. I'm going to write down my inventory. Okay, so it's not as cut and dry as not buying food for a month. So let's get over some kind of like ground rules, some ideas. Here is how I recommend doing this, but as always, you do what works for you. Now, I will not be buying any meat, canned goods, or dry goods for as long as possible. At first, the only thing I plan to buy from the store will be dairy and maybe a few perishable items that we need for optimal health, such as blueberries, because I like to have blueberries because they help prevent dementia and they're just a really, really nutritious food and they are good for everybody. So I just bought a big box from the store because they are something that I try to eat every day. But overall, I am trying not to buy much, not to buy really any frozen stuff, and just, you know, the odd thing of milk because I have a child who is like obsessed with it, and maybe like coffee cream. Now at first you will see I have a lot and I really don't need to buy much at all. We have plenty of frozen vegetables right now. We have some fresh stuff in the fridge and some canned items as well, but I will get into the rest in a bit. But first we need to look at the inventory, and I will recommend that you do this anytime. To only spend like 30 minutes making it or making your list, and then just wear whatever you want, pajamas, you know, you do the thing. I was wearing workout clothes. I hate shooting in this pantry. The lighting is terrible, but it's even a little bit messy too. Normally what I do is I come through about once a week and I just straighten things up. I make sure that I have like everything in the right sections. And I usually do that right before I do my weekly shop on Saturdays because I take my son to work. And so I drive, that's when I get my groceries because he works at a store. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come through here. I'm going to make my list, my inventory of all of the things that I have in here. And once I have all of these inventories, it will be much easier for me to get an idea of what I am dealing with. One thing I maybe didn't mention is that I am not going to write all of this stuff down in one day. What I'm going to do is just spend half an hour at a time because I don't believe in ever making anything like a crazy chore. And so I'm guessing that it is going to take more than half an hour to go through all of these areas and write stuff down. Like in here, for example, I have a lot of like baked goods, and I have flour and oats and almond flour, things like that. So what I'm going to do, because almond flour isn't going to last long, like almond flour it's got an oil in it, so it's not stable for long. So I don't want it to go bad. I don't want to waste it. So what I'm going to do is like find some good recipes for that. And I want you guys letting me know in the comments some of your favorite recipes to use with like pantry items. Not necessarily almond flour, but you can. When you're doing like a big clean out, what are some of your favorite recipes? Like bubble and squeak, or is it shashuka? I think that's what it's called. Like there are a lot of things. Like stir fry is always a great one for like vegetables and things, but let's all share. And also you can share the weirdest thing that you have found. Okay, we are in the garage, and this is my deep freeze. And it has all sorts of things in it. And I can't believe how much food we have. So I'm really glad that we are doing this challenge. So in here, I have got 2 whole chickens. There is a turkey, 2 packs of ribs, which is great. Wait till I get to the meal planning section. You're gonna be like, oh boy. Okay, so like there's a side of salmon in here. This is great. We're gonna be eating like kings for a week or 2, and then things might get a little bit iffy. So the whole point of this challenge is like you can save money with the decluttering, but the other thing is it is also about like recognizing where maybe we've overbought and then just being better at meal planning. Like I try to be really good at meal planning. I check to see that I have ingredients, but I think that sometimes, you know, it's probably those days where we're like really tired, where we say like, you know what, let's make this a takeout night, or let's just have grilled cheese. And then some of those meals that we've bought for kind of tend to go to the wayside. And that is how we end up with like a side of salmon. Like I do tend to like to buy like an extra turkey when they're on sale because they're just so good to have. And they have like so many great leftovers and things like that. I just don't like to have like a deep freeze absolutely full of food that has just been sitting there so long that is starting to get freezer burnt. I just think that's terrible. Now that I have shown you this section, let's get to the meal planning. So when I was making my list, I decided I didn't actually want to write them all down. It was actually easier just to dictate into my phone because there was a lot of stuff in there. And then I could put it on email it to my iPad and then just make lists that way. It was so much easier. And now it's time for meal planning. So I love meal planning. And I usually don't actually even end up with extra stuff. I think it just sort of happens over time that we might end up tired one night and we're like, you know what, let's just have grilled cheese. Or maybe we're just going to do takeout or something like that. So that is sort of how I think sometimes food gets left over. I know that is how it happens with us, and that's how we end up slowly over like a year getting more and more stuff stuck in the fridge. So I have some cookbooks here, and these are really more for inspiration because I don't want to be running out to grab ingredients to complete every meal that I find from the cookbook. Like, so my goal really is to use up what we have. Now I want the meals to be delicious. Like I love Half-Baked Harvest. Such good recipes, and usually like they're really healthy. Of course I open to the cinnamon rolls page, and you know what? I think I have all the ingredients for this. Cajun fries, and you can use like potatoes or sweet potatoes or whatever. Like I can use that stuff up. The Half-Baked Harvest. I grabbed my Pioneer one. I just got this one. This one's a little hit and miss, but you do need some sort of like prepared ingredients, so we'll see. But really, like it's all about just using what you have on hand and sort of substituting what you can. Sometimes if you don't kind of know what is a good idea of what to substitute with, you can Google it, and if you have those things, then that's good. Like yesterday, I made some muffins from some old bananas because I was like, I need to use up these bananas. They're way too soft to even put in the freezer because I do freeze some for my protein shakes. But I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna make some bananas. Why the heck not? So I did that, and they were yummy. And this is another one. It's called Yum and Yummer. It's really good. She does a lot of plant-based things, but not exclusively. And I really like her stuff. And I will link all of these in my shop if you want, like just the Amazon shop. But we have some salmon that needs to be used up, and you know, we have like a bit of cream cheese left in the fridge, which is really awesome. So like maybe I'll like try to make bagels. That might be a fun thing. Like it doesn't have to be a chore being like, we're gonna use up all of this food and it's not gonna be good. I just took out the turkey. It's going to take days to thaw, but we're gonna have turkey in the middle of the week in January because why the heck not? Now, I am so glad that I have a lot of flour because I may need to bake a lot of things. Another thing you do is like lots of pizzas, right? You don't necessarily need to have pizza sauce. If you do have canned tomatoes, that's great. If not, you can just use like olive oil. That can be so good. Now, in the beginning, it is always way easier, but I don't want to compromise eating like healthy and decent meals. So as the weeks go on, we may need to supplement things, maybe buying like a couple of vegetables or whatever. But at first, I think that we will be able to make pretty much all of our meals come from the stuff from the freezer and from the pantry. And then maybe in a few weeks, I might need to supplement with like the odd vegetable or something from the grocery store. But I plan on using at least 75% of the meal ingredients from my stockpile. I might buy the odd like aromatic ingredient like lemons because they just make things taste better. Like that is okay. And so once you make your list, I want you to decide some meals that you can make. So like I said, stir fries are good. Lots of pasta meals. If you have pasta, you can do all sorts of fun things. I have 5 incredible tips for keeping your kitchen clean coming up. But first, do you ever get random piles of paper in your kitchen? Just weird things showing up. We get a ton of paper. It just ends up in the kitchen. And we have a kitchen desk, and I needed to tackle that puppy. And because I know so many of you keep paperwork in your kitchens too, I thought I'd show it to you. One area that can get crazy is the kitchen desk, or area of the kitchen which has lots of papers. Like a lot of people, I have certain areas of my home that tend to attract more things. And I kind of like to, in my head, I kind of call them like the mammoth areas. And that would be 3 areas in particular of my kitchen. So this is part 1 of 3. I'm going to do my kitchen desk, which is an area that really tends to catch a lot of things. I try to be really careful about paper and things, but you know, these junk drawers here, they tend to collect some things. We all sort of throw things into them. The second drawer in particular is where a lot of the kids' stuff ends up, and it just makes me mental. So the other 2 videos are going to be about my pantry and my fridge and freezer. So let me just quickly show you those areas. Okay, I'm embarrassed to say it, but this is my pantry. And I know you might be saying, is this person actually working towards minimalism? I really am. Part of the problem in here would be COVID, because you did have to stock up on a couple of things. It really is just a stand-up fridge and a stand-up freezer. So this is actually the part that scares me the most. This will be coming up in the next couple weeks. This is the freezer. The fridge is fine, but it needs a good clean, good declutter. I haven't done anything since Christmas, so that's coming up. And I'll be getting to the bulletin board soon. Hey guys, welcome to the brown kitchen. Okay, so don't mind the mess behind me. I made muffins today, and I've got a kombucha that I'm gonna bottle. I'm not normally quite as crafty as it may sound. So this is the nightmarish second drawer. The top 2, they're fine. But the second drawer, the nightmarish second drawer, has mostly catch-all clutter stuff for the kids. And we're homeschooling them this year because of COVID. I'm a nurse, my husband's a first responder, and we didn't want to have to deal with sort of like the issues if somebody had a cold. So we just have more stuff around the house. I have less sort of like time to tidy. The kids are here all the time, so I can't just have a moment where the house is clean because they're always moving stuff around. So that's kind of messing with me. But you know, as I mentioned before, minimalism for some is about complete bareness. For me, it's the mindset of not having anything that we don't need. Everything has got to have its home. That is like #1 rule for me. It has to have a home. So I'm going to make sure everything in here goes to its home. And if it doesn't have a home and I can't find a home, meaning it doesn't legitimately need to be here, then it will be donated, recycled, whatever. Instead of spreading everything out, because that would probably leave me hyperventilating on the floor, I'm actually just going to take things out and put them in separate piles. So I'm going to tell you what the piles are. So I've got recycle, garbage, keep, a pile for each person in the house to decide if they want to do whatever with the things that are their belongings, and donate. Okay, so I'm just going to get started and just take stuff out and make some piles. Okay, don't mind these cans that are holding my camera mount up there up. Now I'm just gonna vacuum the drawer out. Oh, that's nice and clean now. And I've got these bins that I got at the dollar store years ago, and I put their names on it. So I'm just going to vacuum them out, give them a wipe, and then put them back in the drawer. So I just found a bunch of fingernails in this one, and that's because up here we keep the nail clippers. But why would anybody do that? It's so gross. Okay, so that did not take very long. So I have a few piles here. So I've got one for my middle son, my oldest, my youngest. I've got some walkie-talkies that they don't recharge anymore. So I'm gonna chat with the boys, see if they wanna keep them, and if not, we'll just give them away. This is stuff that needs to either be shredded or recycled, like easy. This is some board games. Now we keep these downstairs normally. So I think I'm gonna put these back into that home there. You know, why keep things in different places? If we want to play a card game, we'll just go down where we have the rest of the games anyway. So now I'm just going to put the few boys' things back in the drawer and it'll be a lot tidier. I think what I'm gonna do is the kids have a drawer in the dining room dedicated to schoolwork. But I think this one is best suited for that for the remainder of this like wonderful homeschooling year. If we just do that, move it here, and then I can have that back. This did not take long. I've got all their school stuff in here. It looks nice and neat now. And I'll leave the stuff on the table. I'll ask them in a bit just to put their math books in here. I just don't want to mess up anything they're working on. And then this is a much tidier drawer. Before it was crazy. And the awesome thing is that a lot of the stuff on the table is stuff that I can just put back or donate. The more you get into that minimalist mindset of making sure that things have the right place, that you're not keeping things that don't bring you pleasure or are useful or anything like that, then it gets really easy to declutter. Okay, so now time for the top drawers. Now these drawers are not as scary as down below because unfortunately it's just one of those things. It's maintenance when you've got kids and a husband and people in your house who just like make it messy. But yeah, so I'm just gonna do the exact same thing, make different piles, and when I'm done, it's gonna be beautiful. So let's get started. Okay, so right away, first gross thing, here's some gingerbread house. Yuck. One thing I do love is Post-it notes. I don't know about you, but when I open drawers and there's like things like this that get caught, it just makes me, it makes me die inside. So they're in. So I got these from Costco and they're for drawers. They keep everything organized and I really like them because they can be kind of clutter catchery, but they're pretty easy to organize. I just really like all the different cubbies because I've got a section for little batteries, which is helpful. And it's easy to actually keep organized without keeping a bunch of crap around. And that is that. So everything else just needs to be put back. So these drawers are done. And I'll show you the bottom drawer once I put the stuff down. Okay, so this is the bottom drawer. And oh my goodness, okay, I left my husband's advent calendar in here. Oh no, this one's mine. Yeah, so I gotta put this back downstairs with Christmas stuff, and that's good because I got my Christmas string, so I'll put those down, which is good. And yeah, so funny enough, the kids hid a little bit of wrappers, no biggie, but other than that, we have just got, I've got a burlap runner and placemats. That's it. Like this is a nice tidy drawer, and that's what I like, is drawers that aren't jam-packed, which is why I'm really happy to have the drawer from the kids' school stuff back. All the other stuff I'm just gonna put either recycle or put away right now. Don't these drawers look nice and tidy now? Oh my gosh, this one was a freaking nightmare at the beginning, but it looks so good now. I'm so happy. Yay! Now I just need to put things in the basket and return them to where they go or do recycling. I'll leave a few things just to ask the kids where they go. Mammoth job number 1 done. Now here are 5 amazing timeless tips to keep your kitchen clutter free. If you have a cluttered kitchen, you can declutter your kitchen in these 5 easy steps and it will be much tidier, and I even have a bonus for you at the end. Hey friends, I'm Robyn. I help overwhelmed women declutter all of the excess from their lives so that they can start living them. All right, grab your tea and let's go. Now, clutter finds a kitchen like a bear finds our garbage can. There's also the ever-present mess when your kitchen is cluttered. Now let's fix this, my gosh! But let's get started. Number 1, remove any duplicates. You really only need one kind of spatula. Now I know your mom puts a spatula in your stocking every Christmas. However, you really only need one for scraping and one for flipping. So remove any duplicates. Before I go on, I want to ask you the question of the week, which is, what is one hilarious thing that you have held on to for far too long? For me, it is definitely a spurtle that I had for probably a decade, which is just a stick, or maybe more like a Harry Potter wand, to stir oatmeal that my lovely mother-in-law gave me. It's meant to get the lumps out of the oatmeal, but I have to be honest, normally I just used a spoon. So I finally decluttered the spurtle about a month. The second thing that you can do to keep your kitchen decluttered is to keep the counters as clear as possible. Now, when I was a kid and a teenager, my dad wanted to keep all of our small appliances out on the counter. I'm not really sure why. I kind of think it has to do with the clutter mentality that is mentioned in the Swedish death cleaning book, which I will link down below, about the clutter mentality. Now, this basically is that being surrounded by things makes us feel secure. So maybe he felt great having all of these things out, but it can also make you feel very cluttered. You don't really want your kitchen countertops to be cluttered with things. So put away what you can. We just keep our tea kettle out, our soda stream, because I'm afraid there would be like an issue with it flying through the wall or something with the CO2 cartridge, but we do not keep much out. Like really, how can your kitchen feel clean if there is stuff everywhere? And also at the end of the day, make sure that you clean off your counters, put everything away, clean your sink. This actually goes back to what the Fly Lady says. She says to clean your sink every night. And I have to agree, when I come down to a messy kitchen in the morning, I am like super annoyed. But when I come down to a nice clean kitchen, it's a great way to start the day. Now on this channel, I make videos that will save you either time, money, or energy. And this again is gonna save you all three. That just keeps happening. The third thing is to remove anything that is broken. Any chipped mugs, cups, glasses. You don't need any broken stuff. So come on, just declutter it. Just the other day, I broke my favorite glass Starbucks cup, which I use for my fizzy water that I drink all day long. And I don't know why, but I pulled it out of the dishwasher and it was broken, and nobody is taking ownership of that, which is fine. But I just decluttered it right away because there's no point in keeping it. I don't need something broken sitting around our house. So decluttered that. The fourth thing is to remove any old and dingy tea towels and cloths. Those are the ones that you use last until it's like laundry day. Now, we actually got these amazing new cloths. Go Clean Co recommends them. So we actually got a couple of boxes of these, and I will link those below as well. They're awesome. We use them for dusting. We use them in place of paper towel for anything. If there's a spill, anything. The only thing we don't use them for is like drying off raw meat or anything, but for the most part, it's better for the environment and they're very handy. But we got rid of all of our old yucky cloths and our old yucky tea towels. Clutter in the kitchen makes it hard to cook. It makes it hard to work in there. You don't want to spend time with your kids in there because it's super stressful. You pretty much avoid being in there, and you might even order takeout way more than you wanted to as a result. So this is why it saves you money. The fifth thing is to remove any old cookbooks that you don't use. If you have a cookbook where you might use 1 or 2 recipes in it, then I would suggest not hanging on to the book, just taking a picture of that. And also, if you have any loose recipes like that you've taken out of magazines or anything like that, take pictures of them, save them in a special album on your phone. I have one on my phone. Or you can also use Trello or Notion or something like that to store your recipes in. Now, my bonus tip for you is that if your kitchen is not working for you, that you need to make sure that you set it up for function. Maybe there is just a little bit more to declutter than you realize. Maybe you are finding that you hate cooking in your kitchen. Well, I have the answer for you because I have a new Simplify Your Kitchen course. It is super inexpensive, super fast, but you will end up with a very tidy, organized kitchen that is very functional, so you can actually work in there, you enjoy it, your kids can go in there, and when you are done, it is tidy, organized, functional. So you can click the link below for that. And also please comment to feed that silly algorithm. If you enjoyed these tips, I have another awesome video here, which is my incredible ultimate decluttering mega video here for even more inspiration to get your house into an incredible relaxing zone. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.